It is 9:02 and we will call the April 7th meeting of Environmental Services to order with approval of the agenda.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Approval of the minutes from the March 17th, special March 22nd meetings.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Carried. Public comments. Yep.
No, I think
Yeah, up here. Yeah, please.
Thanks. Is it okay if I take my mask off?
Yes.
All right. Makes it easier for you to lip read. Hi, my name is Nancy Moe. I'm with Friends of Gandy Dancer State Trail. It's been a while since we've given you an update, so this is just going to be brief, but at some point we'd love to come back and give you more in-depth explanation of what we've been up to. So I just wanted to mention that Friends of Gandy Dancer is 501c3, and that's been in place for a couple of years now. So we're excited about that. This last year, we completed this Friend of Gandy Dancer map. I've left copies on the desk up there for you to take and kind of look it over. So we've been distributing these. We've had 5,500 printed, and we've got them distributed both locally and regionally. So that's pretty exciting. You're going to probably see a lot more of those coming out and about. We have 3 new. The Friends supported. We weren't responsible for, but we supported the kiosks in Burnett County. So there are 3 brand new kiosks off the trail. If you've got an opportunity to go up in Burnett County and check those out, it's a nice addition to the trail. And upcoming, we've got an Earth Day cleanup on the trail. Typically, we get 80 volunteers up and down the trail, cleaning the entire trail, getting sticks off the trail, cleaning up trash. We're always annually surprised how much stuff comes off that trail. And new this year, we have bingo cards that we're distributing. We've printed we're going to be printing 1,700 bingo cards for the grade school kids, and that's 5 school districts. They're going to be put in their backpacks. I don't have one to an example. Well, I have a bingo card printed here. Oops. This is what they're going to look like. So this would be on the back, but this is what they're going to look like. We've got K through 1. They're going to get this card, and then 2nd through 3rd grade they're going to get a different card, and then 4th through 5th grade are going to get a 3rd kind of card. So more challenging as the grade levels go up. So as I mentioned, these cards will be distributed in their backpacks. They'll take them home. They can also get them online through our website. So what happens, just like any bingo card, you complete a line, and then the bingo card is a win. So when they get a win, then they drop them off at 4 different locations. And when they do that, they get a coupon to get an ice cream cone. Or if they're not ice cream fans, then they can go into a box and grab some surprise thing. In addition to that, we have bingo for adults. So this could be a family affair. So kids and mom and dad can participate in this bingo thing, and parents also get an ice cream cone. If the adult is really motivated and wants to complete the whole card, they can do that, and their name gets dropped into a box and gets pulled out at the end, which will be September 30th. And they could potentially win $250. So incentive to complete the whole bingo card. So we're pretty excited about this adventure. We think it'll be a great way to get kids out on the trail this year. And it will be available in the tourism centers as well. So anybody have any questions for me? Okay, great. Thanks for your time.
Paulette Adair is on the phone.
Yep,
Paulette?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, go ahead.
Great. Good morning. I'm Paulette Adair from Luck. My husband and I own Luck Saddlery and Outfitters. I'm here today to speak to you for the Northwest Wisconsin Equestrian Friends Network, now with over 500 members, and also the many horse lovers in our community that have kept our business open for over 37 years. On behalf of this group, I would like to thank all the board members who have helped open the Stower Trail for equestrian use. I would also like to offer our group's assistance with planning and any work that needs to be done in preparation for the equestrian use. And I'm also here asking for a season for equestrians to use the Gandy Dancer Trail. Thank you again for all your time and consideration, and we truly appreciate everything you're doing for us. And that's all. Short and sweet today.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
Chairman Olson, if you don't mind, I'll just go down the line.
Yep.
Supervisor Middleton, do you have any public comment?
I'm here to listen. Thanks.
Caller number 2, do you have any public testimony? Caller number 3, any public testimony?
Oh.
Jim Berg, do you have any public testimony? Chairman Nelson, do you have any public comment?
With that, we will close public comment. Any conflict, you can let us know when we get there. The other supervisors not seated. I believe Super Middleton said she was just here to listen.
This again.
So, number 7, tax delinquent properties. Mo, you're up.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the only update I have, the only outstanding property we have currently is the 160th Street in the town of Balsam Lake. That's that private dead end road. This one is currently being addressed by a realtor on transferring these lands back to the adjoining property. So that's the only one we have left currently in the queue. Yes, we've tried selling this several times and the town doesn't want it either. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, thanks, Mo. Here's an update. Bob, you're up.
3 minutes. Well, just quick, I'll just stay under 8, which is, I just want to bring you up to date with our applicants for Lori's successor. We had 16 applicants, 6 finalists. Again, this is for the administrative assistant, zoning specialist, position. We'll be conducting interviews for Lori's successor on April 14th. The panelist for that is Jason Cheesa, Steve Geiger, and myself. 8A, in your packet is the drafted resolution that supports base funding goal for the county conservation staff. Again, this is just a declaration to urge this Wisconsin legislature as well as the Joint Committee of Finance to provide $13 million in base funding for county conservation staff. They currently provide, the state does, 9.4 million. So they're just asking to fill that gap, that shortfall of 3.6 million. That's a base funding goal. It's actually in the state statute 92.14. The funding goal for the state of Wisconsin is to provide funding for 3 staff. First, one staff at 100%, the second staff person at 70%, and the third at 50%. Currently, what happens with Land and Waters, we only fund one staff 100%, and the second one 70%, so that 50% is missing. So this is a statewide effort. I noticed that Land Plus Water, that's our professional association, is working with 71 of the 72 counties to do a similar resolution. We've been told it has bipartisan support. And if approved, this will go on the county board and will send to the Joint Finance Committee by May 31st.
So we need a motion to move that to the county board.
I'll make a motion to move it to the county board.
Motion has been made and seconded to move resolution 1721 to the county board. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried off to the county board. So let's just stop there, Bob, for now, as long as we're at that point. We'll go to our public hearings. So was, Jason, I got a call from Mr. Hallberg yesterday. Was he able to make it today or? Okay, so do we have, is Mr. Johnson here? Here. Okay, let's just, is it okay if we do that one first? Okay, yeah, let's do that one first. Yeah, go ahead. Let's open the public hearing for Timothy Johnson.
Okay. Tim Johnson requests his property to be rezoned from residential Ag 5 to small business commercial B3. The property is located at 892 River Road, County Road S, and it's located in the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of section 23, town 33 north, range 19 west, in the town of Osceola. The parcel number is 042-01103 and 0000. The property consists of a total of 9.07 acres. Previously in that, the property was zoned commercial. It's currently being operated as a commercial business. It's the Osceola Veterinary Clinic. It's a corner lot, and then on the south side, it's fronted by Highway 35. On the west side, it's fronted by County Road S. On the opposite side of County Road S, which would be the west side of County Road S, it's got the village limits there. And kind of kitty corner, just a little ways away, is the Osceola School District. So there is a lot of other commercial type of activity in that area, and it's right on the outskirts of the village. The owner, I believe, in that is intending on keeping the property in that used as a vet clinic. And that, I haven't heard anything different than that. got kind of caught off guard. We had already published a notice in that to try to move this forward. And it was voting day last night. So the town board and that canceled their meeting kind of at last minute and they moved it to next week. So if you guys wanted to, you could always approve that with condition on the town approving of it. And that, remember the last one that we had in the town of Osceola, you guys remanded it back to the town for another opinion anyway. So I think that's kind of fitting. The sewer system, when it was installed for the building, was sized as a commercial sewer, and it had state approved plans for being a commercial sewer as well. And the county has sent out all the proper class 2 notices prior to this meeting. As far as exhibits, all that we have for that is just a map of the property, which I can pass around if you want to see it. That's all I've got. There's no other letters of support or objections submitted for this request. So no objections or support. Yep. So it is on the next week town board agenda, but I got kind of caught off guard with the election day. So I thought they were going to cancel that. So.
So do we just need a motion then?
Yep, and that motion and that would need to be made, and staff would suggest in that it's conditioned on receiving approval from the town board of Osceola.
Hey, Bob, did you get Mr. O'Connell, Supervisor O'Connell enlarged on the screen again, just so we can? I guess as long as the applicant is here, Jason, he could. Okay.
We've been there, the building's been there 43 years. I've been there 41 years. Dr. Lindholm owned the property and then built the hospital a little later date. Been in business 67 years and at that site for 43 and plan to continue indefinitely. Got 4 other veterinarians working there. I'm 65. They're hoping to purchase maybe in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's the plan.
Okay. With that, I guess I'd entertain a motion to approve, deny.
I make a motion to approve based on the approval from the town of St. Croix or Osceola.
The town is that
Yes,
Mhm.
approval of the town of Osceola.
You seconded it,
Sure.
Doug?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. Motion has been made and approved to approve the rezone for Timothy Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Okay, so findings of fact, the property is currently zoned RA5. It was previously zoned commercial. It's 9.07 acres in size. It's fronted in that by a county and state highway. It's close to the village limits, and it's also close to other commercial businesses. Anything else to add for that?
Any wetlands, or anything?
Yep, no wetlands, no streams, or navigable waters.
Okay.
Conclusions of law, we can put that it's similar to land uses and the previous land uses of the property, as well as the current land use of the property. It's in line with the comprehensive plan of the county because we want our commercial developments along our major arteries like Highway 35. And we want them close to our incorporated areas, so. And then I'll put on there if town approves and that we assume it'll make their comprehensive. All gonna be good now. Everything will be updated.
Is there a resolution for that too, Jason, or it's not ready yet?
I believe the county clerk's got that, and that, so they got it all numbered. So, yep. Right. Moving into our next hearing then. Hearing is for Josh Hallberg. And Josh Hallberg requests a rezone from residential Ag 5 to residential R1 for Lot 2 of CSM number 7381, located in section 31 and part of 32, town 35 north, range 16 west, town of Georgetown. Parcel number is 026 01263 -10 or 1300. It's 5.03 acres. We did receive an email in that from Mr. Hallberg. Sounds like he's maybe in the tax accounting field. So he was not able to be here today. But basically in that, he just wanted you guys to know that the purpose for the rezone is to be able to create additional lots out of this property. So he wants to take and split it out into 1 acre lots for him and his family to have other dwellings on the property, because otherwise they're limited to only having one dwelling. The issue is that, again, it's 5.03 acre parcel being zoned RA5. They would need 7.5 acres in order to create 2 lots. And that you take the 7.5 divided by 5 rounds to 1.5. So that rounds up to 2. So that's the issue, why he's coming through. He has no intention of doing any agricultural business. I'm basically summarizing his email to you guys. The town of Georgetown has approved of it. We do have their an email from them and some minutes from their meeting. The minutes are from February 3rd, and it says Josh Hallberg, 1818 110th Street, rezone. Motion by John Malamphy to approve a rezone request from RA5 to R1. Motion to approve, seconded by Mark Entz. Motion carried. So the property does front on a town road. I do have exhibit 2 here, which is a map of the property. See that the lands on the lake side of the town road there are in yellow, and so those are already R1. There's lots of lots along the back lot or the back road stretch of that property. So it's going to be a compatible use with the existing land uses because of it being in a residential development. Agricultural uses probably wouldn't fit into that area as well. The lot was originally created in 2011, so it was a legal lot when it was platted. So that makes it also buildable. And there was a CSM or certified survey map done on that in December of 2020. So it's been recently surveyed, but they would take that bigger survey and separate it out according to the Chapter 18 subdivision ordinance of the county. So there was a Class 2 notice published for this hearing. And with that, that's all I've got. Those are the exhibits and staff.
So no objections.
No objections or letters of support. There's no floodplains or navigable waters on the property. It's basically 5 acres of high ground on a back.
Other questions for Jason, or if not, we would entertain a motion.
Make a motion then.
Made and seconded to approve the rezone for Josh Holberg. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Tracy seconded it.
Okay, so for finding of facts, we have the lot was originally created in 2011, has been recently surveyed in 2020. Being 5 acres, and that is not able to be subdivided underneath the RA5 zoning district. The applicant wishes to subdivide to be able to create other dwelling sites. There's no wetlands or floodplains or any navigable waters on the property. So. And then as far as conclusions of law, the town of Georgetown has reviewed and approved with their comprehensive plan. The proposed use is similar to the surrounding land uses and surrounding zoning districts. And therefore is in line with the county's comprehensive plan, being that it's close to the lake. That's pretty good. Hearings in 15 minutes. We're on a roll.
It's a record.
It wouldn't be so bad, but it'll come back to bite us at some point.
Maybe next meeting.
Okay, Bob. Do you want to finish, or do you want to move to, Jason, C?
You want to do that right now?
Yeah. Sharon will probably vote against this.
Which one are we on?
C. From St. Cripple.
Oh, yeah.
So this one, the resolution, I believe, is being brought forward by Sharon. I'll kind of explain what I know of it. So the county worked on a comprehensive rewrite. They did it for about 6 years. That rewrite was scheduled to take effect in 2015. Basically, the rewrite, involved citizen advisory groups, a lot of public meetings, public hearings. A lot of that was done before my time, and that Tim and that through our office and that facilitated all those meetings. Basically, at that time, it was the goal of the county to create one ordinance that included both the shoreline provisions and the general zoning provisions. All ready to enact this new ordinance, and it was actually scheduled to take effect in September of 2015. and there was some state legislature changes called Act 55. After Act 55 went into effect, basically certain things like non-conforming structures and that were treated differently between the comprehensive and the shoreline. Also, in that it was very confusing as far as lot sizes and what could be required in and out of the shoreline areas. So the DNR gave a lot of guidance to take and separate the two ordinances back out into two standalone ordinances so that each one of them could be administered underneath their respective statutes. So that's what we did. On January 2nd of 2019, the Attorney General came out with a legal opinion that said that no, a county zoning ordinance can regulate land use within the shoreline area. So at that time, and that I seen that come through, we brought that back to the committee, said, hey, do you guys want to take and change this? Since this was part of the goal of the county as part of that whole comprehensive rewrite process, that the county said yes. So we went through and we basically put our same zoning districts that are in our general zoning ordinance, the comp ordinance, into the shoreline ordinance. Then with that, now we created new zoning maps for all of them shoreline areas, and we wanted to get the town's input because we tried to go through and pick out commercial establishments that we knew of throughout the county and zone them appropriately because we weren't trying to create any hardships in that throughout this whole deal. But we're like, who better knows their areas than the towns themselves? So in June of 2019, we took and did a memo and we printed off 2 foot by 2 foot maps. And we sent those maps and that to each town and said, here you go. And that we'd like them back by October. So we gave them almost 4 months to work on them. And when you take and view them, let us know if you got any changes or mark it on your map so that we can update our maps. We had a lot of feedback from the towns, which was good. That's what we wanted. And consequently, they asked for more time. So we ended up extending it and that through a lot of the winter months of 2019, 2020. Finally, we were able to take and adopt the new comprehensive rewrite of the shoreline ordinance because we added zoning districts to it for the whole county on May 1st of 2020. So that's kind of the whole background. Now to take and fast forward, and that the town of St. Croix Falls is looking to enact their own uses within the shoreline area. And so in other words, we'd be removing the county's residential Ag 5 and residential and commercial, all 12 of our zoning classifications out, and then the town would fill in theirs and that into the shoreline area. That's kind of the whole goal. It sounds like there's been some complications or some conflicting zoning district language and that between the two. But when we sent out the maps back in 2019, 2020, the town came back and they didn't give us any suggestions or they didn't do any corrections for us. They came back with some public comment and that said we don't want the county to have use regulation in the shoreline areas, but that was basically the gist of their public comment. So they didn't take us up on the opportunity to comment or correct a lot of this stuff. So I guess that's what I've got to this point. And that we did receive some feedback from Katie Lutz. She's the head shoreline policy coordinator in that for the DNR, if Bob can pull that up. I had sent an email about 2 weeks ago on March 30th or whatever. And we just got a response back this morning. So I apologize for not having that in your packet. There was also a legal opinion put out by Von Briesen and that the attorneys with the Wisconsin Counties Association that was included in your packet. So you can kind of take that for what it's worth. But this is the email that I sent to David. She's got some in red.
No, they didn't turn it, didn't turn out in red. So that's her answers to your questions. See that? There's the answer.
Oh. So basically, I asked her, and that can the county have a shoreline zoning ordinance with the general zoning districts that regulate uses within the shoreline areas? She said yes. So in other words, the county's ordinance as it is right now is legal. And I want to remind you that whatever changes we make to the shoreline ordinance, that the DNR or the department, it's how the administrative code reads, has to certify our ordinance. So currently it is certified, it is a legal ordinance. Is there any obligation for the county to have one shoreline zoning ordinance that applies everywhere within the county? Yes, the shoreline ordinance applies to all incorporated areas. So we can't segregate out one town and treat one town differently than another town and have 24 different ordinances within the county. What types of things can towns regulate within the shoreline areas? They can have a subdivision ordinance and they can have a zoning ordinance, but they cannot regulate the shoreline zoning standards. So what she means by that is the town can have their use zoning districts as well, but anything that's regulated by NR 115, they cannot regulate. So height, impervious surface, vegetation removal. So we still have to take and permit all those activities and that at the county level, regardless of the uses. And the town and county both have use rules or regulations within the shoreline areas, even if they conflict. And I put the example in there. One is residential, the other says it's commercial. And she said, yes, this is common, most restrictive applies. And have you seen any other counties and that with this? Does it work? Yes, the town and county ordinance are not always consistent. There was an effort through the comprehensive planning process to make this for the towns that had county zoning. For those towns that do not, it's anticipated that the ordinances will not always be the same. So it's not anything unique in that this is happening. It's very common in that for towns and that want to regulate their shoreline areas, but have not adopted county zoning and have their own rules. So, and then scroll up to the top, her main email. Then, yes, the shoreline ordinance regulates uses listed as one of the proposed ordinance criteria. And basically, the Wisconsin statute does not prohibit a county from enacting a shoreline ordinance that regulates a matter that is not regulated by a shoreline zoning standard. Shoreline zoning standard, again, is NR 115. That's how we can enact ordinances for side yard setbacks. And because of that rule right there, that's how we can take and regulate boathouse sidewall height because of that. You know, we can't regulate the height because height is in NR 115, says that they can be 35 feet tall. But if we take and put a side limit or a sidewall height max on it, then we have some kind of limit to the height of a boathouse. And not, so they're not 35 feet. So.
Can I ask questions?
Absolutely.
So based on that, how do residents know, like, for example, St. Croix Outdoors, from the town of St. Croix Falls, it's zoned commercial. It's always been zoned commercial. Now it's designated shoreland and it's zoned, what is it, RA5?
Yeah, probably, because in the towns and the towns without zoning and the towns that had their own zoning, we don't know what you guys have things classified. The unzoned towns don't have it classified. So we put it in the zoning district and that is most common and kind of a fits all, and that which is our RA5 zoning district, which is what most of Polk County is zoned. It allows for the highest number of residential homes without being an R1 zoning classification like we just changed one property to today. But it also allows the agricultural uses. So if somebody wants a little horse farm or hobby farm, it allows that use. And that it allows all of our uses of our Ag 10 zoning district and the R1 district. So really, the RA5 zoning district is kind of a mix that incorporates, you know, all our ag uses and our residential uses into one zoning classification.
So going back to the example of St. Croix Outdoors, they've been a commercial business for, no, I don't even remember how many years, a long time. But based on the county zoning, that's illegal.
So they're considered a non-conforming use right now. they're able to continue to operate as being grandfathered in. Non-conforming use means that they were legal when they were permitted, but they're not legal underneath today's ordinance at the county level.
So his question to us was, if I want to retire now and sell my business, can somebody come in and operate that business again? Based
It's
on,
the same business, yeah, but if they want to change it and that from restaurant
it's not a
to
restaurant.
racetrack,
Yeah,
then see, and this, the reason why the county went from, a handful of zoning districts to 12 was to give towns more control. And by, we had towns, we did this, that said, no, we want to leave it as it is so that they have to come and ask us before they change that use. So that's why we were very careful about going in and just assigning a whole bunch of properties commercial. And that because maybe they're not happy with the way that guy's operating. Maybe they don't want it to expand into a truck stop, So by taking and having it as RA5, a standard zoning district, then any future approvals require town input. So that's a two-way street. And that you might want it to be commercial for future owners, but you might not either. And this would involve the town to say, oh, okay, what are you proposing to do there when you're looking at rezoning it to commercial? Because as we've seen, it requires town approval first. And the town, if they had things that they really wanted to take and zone to commercial, mining, whatever it be, then that had the opportunity.
So it said the most restrictive applies. Isn't theirs at that point more restrictive than ours at commercial instead of RA5?
You're gonna have to comply with both ordinances. What is she saying about most restrictive? So let's say that the town has a 15-foot side yard setback and the county has a 10-foot side yard setback, and you want to build a house, which one do you use? You have to use the 15-foot in order to comply with the town. And that in order to do a commercial use on your property, you have to take and have both and that local units of government and that properly zoned.
So in this case, regardless of what it is or where it is, there are two different zoning issues. How does it work? Because it can never work, can it? I mean, if one is saying commercial and the other one's saying RA5, how does somebody get to where they want? Because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of compatibility in those two zoning districts.
It's worked since 1967. The county has always regulated land uses within the Shoreline ordinance since they adopted a Shoreline ordinance. And that, for example, and that we actually work quite a bit with the town of St. Croix Falls because they're very involved compared to some of our other own towns that are, want to say that they have their own zoning rules, but really don't enforce them. So we had a tourist rooming house, and that it was a permitted use underneath our ordinance. But one of the conditions in that was that they must obtain and keep all local approvals. Well, the town of St. Croix Falls, and that had a tourist rooming house or a short-term rental as a conditional use permit. While working with their zoning administrator, he took and made me aware that they hadn't complied with their conditional use permit and that they had never even applied. But they applied through us and that at the county. So we actually helped the town then by pulling that conditional use permit or revoking it. And then we revoked it on condition that they didn't comply with the town's ordinance. And that we did it not once, but we did it twice for the town.
it's
So
confusing for the people though that own the property to know, do I need to go to the county? Do I need to go to the town? Who do I listen to?
it's not uncommon though, because if you want to build a house in Polk County right now, and that you have to pull a sanitary and land use permit through the county zoning office here, if it's under county zoning, and you have to work with the town building inspector, and that for any new house, for the uniform dwelling code. So they're working with both units of government on every single new house that's out there nowadays. So
So in essence, a business owner in this case, I guess, would have to come to the county and ask to have it rezoned to commercial.
even though it's good at the town and that they're gonna have to take and because when we go back a little bit to these rezones, you know, and that we just had, we had the towns approving based on their comprehensive plan. Then the only reason they come to the county, otherwise the town could just do all of this, is because the county's supposed to have say in that to make sure that it complies with the county's comprehensive. There's two different, you know, plans, and that there's two different sets of zoning districts, and that to make sure everything, you know, ends up to be the final plan that we want to see in 20 years.
So if, and the example I use, that it's commercial, town of St. Croix Falls, it's RA5 here. If the current owner comes over to the county and says, I want this zone commercial, then
It would go through the same process that we just had today, and that the town would be involved, the town would approve of it, and that they'd come through, we'd do the same thing, their property's now commercial.
and
And
they
that,
pay,
or
and they pay what, $750?
$50. Yep.
I just have an issue with that. It's putting a burden on the property owner that they shouldn't have to have. If there's got to be a way that we can have.
Well, if the county wishes to keep these zoning districts, what we've extended as far as an offer to the town of St. Croix Falls is to take and remand another 2x2 map back to you, and that say, here you go, town, and that talk with your property owners, make sure that everybody's property is zoned how they want it zoned, you know, submit us a new map, we'll update our maps, and we're done. And that, in the last 2 weeks here, since all this has come up. And but
Hear that at our last meeting that had happened. So
but we did it in 2019 too, and I got a memo and everything that I've had. And that where we really wanted their input, but, you know, we didn't get any input, and we want your input as a town. So, because zoning is a very local control, we work on behalf of the towns, and that in exchange for working on behalf of the towns, we collect permit fees to cover staff costs.
Go ahead.
Chairman, I'm just a follow-up with Sharon. I kind of contemplated all that this morning, in that over the last months, we've been doing these zone changes,
Yeah.
and we have no problem with them. And the person pays $750.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like it's just a matter of if you pay your money, then
You get it.
Get this change.
Yeah. And people just need to be aware, because, I mean, some of these businesses that have contacted us, you know, you can go down the list. From Fonda Rosa to all of them are now RA5, but commercial in the town of St. Croix Falls. So it's just, we've had a ton of people that are just upset about it as they try to, and especially these people that are thinking about selling their businesses, because now they thought they were zone commercial, but they are, but they aren't. But Malaya, does this information that we just saw this morning now, does that change?
It does not change the ability for the county to enact the resolution modifying the ordinance. You know, some of the things, just to correct a few misunderstandings, the AG opinion from 2019, the Legislative Reference Bureau has corrected that and basically said the AG did not take into consideration the modifications in the law that made it clear that towns could enact use zoning within a shoreline. So then the only question that I think this email from the DNR puts in my mind is that answer about the more restrictive then applies.
Uh-huh.
So then if you have, let's say, a commercial zone and a RA5 zone in the two different jurisdictions, and then our viewpoint is that you need to comply with both. Well, given her answer, if that is correct, there is an argument to be made that whichever one limits the uses more is the only one you need to apply, and you don't need to comply with both. Having said that, you also have to take into consideration when you have a special exception permit at the town level, which is like our conditional use permit, same concept. You know, if you're getting one from one jurisdiction and then having to get the same thing or something very similar from another, how is that, you know, fair to those property owners? So I think clarifying those things might be a good idea before taking action. And also, I think if Jason has reached out to the town about updating the map, that's probably, under these circumstances, the cleanest and easiest way to get rid of some of these conflicts, but it still leaves the question of, okay, so now they're both zoned the same, but one needs a conditional use permit and one doesn't because of the nature of the way we're defining. You know, our definition of commercial might be different than the town's, that sort of thing. So, but to clean it up and not have $750 from each property owner, if the town really wanted all of that commercial and they updated their map and then the county simply incorporated that, that might be, again, a clean way to, at least for the current time, take care of those concerned property owners in the town.
Well, I'll make sure that map gets updated. That won't be an issue, because I wasn't aware that it wasn't about the 2019 stuff.
Let's put it this way, that it's almost to the point where the town's fighting with themselves, because the town is the sole body that's in charge of their zoning map. And if they petition the county and that to change it, and that it's no different than your ordinance amendment, and that comes through this committee to be approved when the town changes their ordinance. I mean, you're in control of it, and that all you got to do is go through, rework that map
So
and
what
make
you're
sure
saying
that.
is everything where they're different, if we go and say, no, we want it to match what we have,
Absolutely.
and then that
And that-
like magic happens.
I think you guys have a transition district or something like that we don't. So you'd have to look at it and say, okay, we'd be fine with that as RA5. The uses are pretty similar between our zoning district and the county's RA5. So then you classify it as RA5 and it's done. I mean, and that we got to run through public hearing and stuff with an ordinance amendment, which is one thing I need to talk to the committee about, because we postponed the one that we were going to have at the next meeting for an ordinance amendment till we got this figured out. But that's all it takes. And that is, going through, updating your map, correcting, all those properties, Ponderosa, St. Croix docks, and that, everything, the barbecue pit or Swanks or whatever it might
Say
be.
correcting, what do you mean? Like right now, those are all zone commercial.
There's zone commercial on the town side, so you can make them zone commercial on the county side. Then there's no conflicting.
And to do that, all we have to say is, here's everything. We have zone commercial. We want you to zone it commercial.
Very easy.
You think that's gonna work?
I definitely think it would work for the circumstances that you're concerned about. Again, where I think there's a question is special exception permit, conditional use, having to apply in two places. If really the more restrictive applies, do we only have them apply in the one that has that one that is more restrictive? Those are the questions that I think are still outstanding. But from just the concern about the conflicting zoning districts, yeah, that's the cleanest and easiest way.
Well, I'll have them get that map done and get that to you. And then what do we need to do about this other that you just mentioned? How do we handle that?
Well, I think we can probably reach out and ask some clarifying questions to get the DNR's viewpoint. But really, because there's some ambiguity there, I think what we have to do is decide whether or not the county wants to, in addition to the town, in a circumstance like this, have conflicting provisions on use, especially conditional use permits as they relate to special exceptions in the town.
Okay. So then this ordinance just goes, this resolution just goes away.
I don't think it should just go away. I think it should be postponed to a date certain so that we can answer some of these underlying
Okay. But do I have to make a motion to do that?
Yes.
I make a motion to postpone this to a date certain.
What is that date certain? We can just pick a date, Malia?
Let's give us a little extra time rather than the next meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So instead of 2 weeks, the one in 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go for it. And then we can always, if we're not done, we can just postpone it another 2 weeks at that point.
You like a map and that to actually mark up on and that? Would it be like our office?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll make sure that you have that today.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So this won't fix everything, but it'll fix most of the issues.
It'll get it back in that to where it's been since 1967. Like I said, in that people were coming in for a tourist rooming house, they'd pull a permitted use through the county for $400, and then they would go to the town and do the conditional use or special exception process through them. So it's gonna be the same thing in that as what it was in the past. So, but they'll have a lot more in sync and in common with the town's ordinance, so. And I'm guessing that that's gonna take a few months and that for the town to do, correct? I would assume.
Well, it better not take a few months. I would think we can get that done
Okay.
as quickly as possible.
The reason why I'm asking in that is about amending the ordinances for the shoreline ordinance and that, we might want to wait in that for the bunkhouse and boathouse and fence rules. And that, it'd be nice to tie in that map amendment as well. If you want to wait that long, that's why I was looking.
Aren't
for
we
time.
already posted to go in 2 weeks?
No, no, we pulled that because in that I would have had to post it last Tuesday and that, and we had this whole thing coming up. And if there was an ordinance text amendment, it would have been 2 ordinance amendments all at the county board at one meeting. So we would have had 2 different shoreline versions getting enacted at the same meeting. So,
You guys, if you want to do it together.
otherwise we
Well,
can,
let's wait 2 weeks and we'll get a report from Sharon as to how they're coming
Okay.
on the map. I mean, I don't want to see what we have coming, pushed out to the end of summer either.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree.
So yeah, we okay with that? Give the town a couple weeks to see how far they get along, and if they're
Yeah.
within 2 weeks, then, okay.
Give us an update on how
Yeah.
she thinks it's gonna progress and go.
And if they're close, we can just set it and put them under the gun to get done.
I would think that Jim could probably go through in a couple hours and fix everything
What I'm
within the
thinking.
town, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
shouldn't.
we
have
just
any
went
problem.
from several months to 2 hours, so we're.
I spent an hour on all the county maps, so. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, Bob, now you can be back up.
Okay, we're on 8B, the update of the Polk County Health Evaluation and Outreach Project. Believe it or not, roughly, Eric just texted me. We were awarded the grant. However, it's only a third of the grant request. If you remember correctly, and you all did provide a support letter for this grant. This is simply an outreach program where we're going to offer well water testing, private wells for nitrates and bacteria, and help our volunteers, those who want to participate, residents, determine areas of groundwater contamination. It's really about bringing awareness, not only to our well water testing program here at the county, but also learn about best management practices to prevent nitrates from reaching groundwater. It also aligns, I remember Sharon asked about a workflow. This aligns with goal number 2 of Land and Water's 10-year plan, where we are to protect and improve groundwater quality and quantity. And the objective within that goal is to obtain pertinent groundwater data to determine current groundwater conditions. Again, I just want to frame this as to the goal of this groundwater program. Again, it's an outreach project where we're going to subsidize, originally we're going to subsidize 300 residents within 3 watersheds, Horse Creek, Wapo, and Apple River flowage. Now it looks like we'll just simply downsize that to choosing one of those 3 watersheds and really just replicate what we did previous summer for the Balsam Lake group. So that involves mailings, paying for the test kits, and some staff.
So what did we ask for and what did we get?
We asked for 31,500. We got 10,500. I'll work with our land and water staff to determine which of the 3 watersheds we should pick. I would assume it's going to be our second one. We've ranked all the watersheds, and you've seen that. So second place is the Horse Creek, Horse Lake watershed, then Wapo, and then Apple River. So we have the liberty to choose one of those. You all want to help us with that decision? I'll work with staff on that now downsized program.
Was it a matching grant or a 31.5? Would have that covered
It was
everything?
covered everything. It was the intent. Yep. It fits within our work plan. It's an outreach effort, and it's a way to, subsidize those costs for those 100 volunteers that will be receptive to participate. So good and bad news. Good or bad, I suppose. I know Health and Human Services on their agenda. This topic item is on there as well. We'll just deliver the same message. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Okay, 8C. Well, I just thought I'd give you a brief update on our Apple River project. Right now, the public hearing has begun, and what they're doing is gathering testimony. We are on a listserv where we get all that docket information. Apple River Solar, the actual company, LLC, submitted their initial testimony on March 26th. On April 30th, which is coming up, interveners, as well as the PSC, their staff, can provide their testimony. On May 25th, there'll be rebuttals to the testimony. That'll be heard. And then the public hearing of this project is currently scheduled for 10 a.m. on Wednesday, June 23rd. Now, what has Apple River Solar done locally? They have met with each town involved in the project and have signed joint development agreements, those JDAs, with the towns of Apple River, towns of Beaver, Clayton, and I'm told they'll be at the Lincoln Town Board meeting tomorrow, Thursday, April 8th, to discuss that JDA and suppose advocate for that side as well. Chairman Olson, that's all I have.
So it was April 30th when the county gets to have their say, so to
Yes,
speak.
I'm on the PSC staff. Malia's designated intervener. We provide her with your concerns, and suppose if you have additional concerns, we can either do a group process or you can just reach out to Malia.
I have the list from the previous meetings as far as the concerns that you want raised. They did reach out and ask if we were going to be providing any specific evidence or just general testimony. And so we're not admitting any evidence.
I assume it'll be on a subsequent agenda as well. Continue updates.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, everybody. First on the list here is a update on the Comprehensive Trail Network Plan process that's going on through PTAG. last week, we had a pre-proposal meeting with 5 potential consultants. That pre-proposal meeting was an opportunity for folks to ask some questions, get some insight on the process, for staff and PTAG to help explain and expand upon our expectations in the proposal process. So that was really good. Final proposals are due the 14th of April. They're going to be reviewed, opened on the 15th, presented to PTAG on the 19th, and PTAG will review those proposals and ask the top candidates to come in and present. And then on the 17th, they're going to present to PTAG on the 17th. And then an award will be made within 30 days of that. So if everything goes as planned, we should have a consultant on board by the end of June.
Did all 5 consulting firms participate in the pre-proposal?
We had 5 consultants in the pre-proposal meeting. We don't know how many proposals we're going to get.
Oh.
So they still have they still have a few days to submit. So we may get more than 5 submittals.
So did you consider 5 to be a good number?
I'm very happy with 5. They were reputable firms, and yep. Move on to B. There aren't any other questions. So the discussion of the pedestrian hiking trail within Mackenzie Creek Wildlife Area. The question was asked to get a little bit more information on the pedestrian trail, a specific trail, but overall what the process is for the state to post and sign pedestrian trails in Mackenzie Creek. And through a number of phone calls and emails with the property manager up there, Michelle Carlisle, the real basic answer is the Mackenzie Creek Wildlife Area, their main goal, their main purpose is to focus on wildlife related recreation. So hunting, wildlife habitat, wildlife viewing. And if they post, versus a trail-based recreation system like we have on the Gandy or the South. So if they post a designated hiking trail, that opens up and it comes with a whole host of things they have to do now. They have to have inspections and trail management stuff. So there's no interest in posting that. But all of these trails in state wildlife areas are open to pedestrians. They have a few large signs typically at each wildlife area throughout the state that says, it's those brown signs similar to our trailhead signs that say what you can and cannot do at these areas. The particular trail in question, there's a gate about halfway up the trail. That trail, and some of these trails are used as maintenance type roads for state staff, temporary logging roads. So all of these trails are open to pedestrians unless otherwise marked. From time to time, if they're working in an area, they will mark a trail, if there's a hazard or something like that. So.
Typical DNR fashion. We own it. Please don't use it. Okay.
Moving on to B, recommendation of the Summers Lake Trail Development or PTAG. As we talked about here before, for PTAG to consider or start working on a project that needs to come from a recommendation from the committee. So we would like to begin evaluating and vetting the Summers Lake property and it's already open for equestrians. It's a county forest, so equestrians are allowed. However, there are not really any support facilities there at this time. So PTAG would like to start looking at that property and going through the process of figuring out what sort of support facilities we may need, may not need, and ranking that stuff. Parking lot, widening trails, you name it. But we would like a formal recommendation to start looking at that.
It's not just equestrian related, just in general.
The recommendation would be for PTAG to look at Summers Lake for equestrian opportunities.
Good, that map and
Yep, and that was in the packet. And that's the existing trail that was done years ago. There's been a series of storms and logging events out there that have since changed that trail layout. So I do anticipate some significant trail work being done out there.
problem with that, or sending it to PTAG? We don't need a motion, we can just, or do we need a motion, Malia?
I don't think you need a formal motion, just
Just a
general consent.
consensus to send it on.
And the next two agenda items, the Lorraine ATV trail and the Sterling ATV trail. That, I guess my ask there has changed. We had a meeting yesterday with the ad hoc committee, the ATV UTV committee from the Public Safety and Highway Committee, so their ad hoc ATV UTV committee. And that committee demonstrated, these are the guys that are going to be out building and working on the trails. They've got the kind of the boots on the ground institutional knowledge about ATV trail construction and that sort of thing. Where PTAG really shines is prioritizing these types of projects. So PTAG could look at a list of projects and say, we want to build some ATV trails. Great, got it. Let's take this ATV trail development to that ad hoc ATV UTV club. I think it makes a lot of sense to have both of these conversations, the Sterling Trail and the Lorraine Trail, being talked about in the same committee. I don't see a reason to split that up. So that's change there on the agenda. So that would be my recommendation, is to keep both of those projects with the ad hoc ATV.
You're okay with that?
Yes.
So just I guess a question on the Lorraine thing, or on the Lorraine Trail, only because that's going to be across private property, and then the snowmobile trail is my understanding. I mean, that's something that could be back in front of this committee to go to, because it needs county board approval, right? To open the trail at the end of the day.
To open the trail on county land.
Yeah, so like the Lorraine Trail would need county board approval.
Designate.
Designation.
But county board approval at the end of the day. So seeing it's the trail's already there, it would probably, my understanding is the only thing that would need work is the private property portion of things. So if they got the easement, I mean, from the landowners, is it something that, Doug, do you think could be back in front of this committee next month to go to the county board in May?
See,
I mean, just so that I guess so we understand the process a little bit.
I know we had a discussion yesterday, and the ad hoc committee works under the park safety plan. And the guys are here, and we've got two more. They're all knowledgeable about trails, easements, because of the snowmobile club, but these are all in ATV. And they work with private landowners. And what technically our goal is to get these trails to become state funded, because then they get money for maintenance. So do we need to come back to here, or do we need to come back to public safety and works? You're working in the same direction. You just
Oh, yeah. I guess my point is there again, I don't care if it comes here or if it goes there, I'm just, maybe once again, I'm trying to speed the process up too fast. And
We're
say,
trying to speed the process up because we want to get some of these developed
yeah,
for technically this summer.
and well, and the other thing is if we haven't approved them at the county level, regardless of where that trail is, there's really no use, you know, they're not gonna, the ATV clubs aren't gonna go out and start to mow brush on private property through an easement and then find out 2 months later, oh yeah, well, the county didn't approve it.
Yeah.
You know, so that's my point in trying to also push it faster is that, you know, no work is gonna be done on the trail until the county board approves it.
That would be Ben and committee, not me, these guys, because
Right.
they understand it, they do the work. And then they wouldn't start until they had everything, all the ducks in a row.
Right, but that's where I'm getting at. The faster it gets to the county board, the sooner they can, I'll say, get to work, you know, because it would then become a designated trail. So that they could go out and start to work on it. So yeah, I'm just looking at trying to get, you know, like there, the Lorraine chunk, it's mostly snowmobile trail. It's a private land designated kind of as fast as we can, so to speak, so that they can work, you know, get started working on it.
And
Sure.
what was heard yesterday is that we have a 5 mile existing loop in Sterling. And there's a map creating a 25. Well, in our discussion yesterday, we had Mark here, Ben was there. We looked at the map and you're going around this circle, you get a town road. And then that's a section, we call it. So then if they come back to the landing down a different town road that is existing, then that can become an existing part of the road. But we don't have to create the 25 miles to get that part of it.
Right, you could start with a 6 mile loop or whatever it is.
Phases.
Stages, yeah. Yeah,
So, you know, then you can do 4 sections. Because they discussed it probably would take years. But you could maybe, depending on what they haven't determined it yet, because they have to get out on site and look at it. But a lot of it is logging roads also. So those just need to be brought up to standards with mowing and grading. And I guess they'll jump in if I need it, but get so much money for state funding for ATV, and it's quite a bit compared to snowmobile. But if you do a logging road in the county forest, then you get 50% of that money. But here, all of a sudden, you have a crew maintaining that section. And there's quite a few logging roads on that map.
Correct. And that's, maybe we should talk about F on here too at the same time, which is the recommendation for PTAC to consider the rules and regulations for ATVs in the direction. So PTAC could talk about what the goal is and get an overall picture of where the county wants to go with ATVs. If it's if it's dealing with county forest and designating roads, what they could tell us what our procedure or what our way forward is here. So that conversation I think needs to happen at the same time, or maybe before we talk about designating actual forest roads.
The recommendation in the packet, it had the Burnett County. Is that the direction you're talking about?
That would be a framework. Yeah, very simple. Very simple. So, and PTAG could talk about that. If the committee feels that staff should come up with a recommendation and bring that forward, that's an option too.
I guess I'm fine with that going to PTAG, but I think at the same point, I think that should be back in front of your ad hoc committee of four-wheelers to have that looked at it when it is a four-wheeler, ATV, UTV thing, then I think that group could, there again, both of those should be looking at it.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'll say working together as to where they, where they think it should be to send it back to here, but, so like the Lorraine, the Sterling, whatever, either one of them, both of them, what needs to take place to apply for state funding, I guess? I mean, where, what comes first, second, third, fourth? I'm assuming that the county has to designate it first, of course. And then from that point, where does it go?
So once we have the designation from the county, we have to identify the route. And it doesn't have to be the exact route because there's a lot of give and take in trail building. You get out there and you don't really know what you're dealing with. So we have to identify the route, come up with some per mile costs associated with punching in a trail and building a trail. And then there's a grant that goes to the state. The grant deadline is April 15th. And the state, you can ask for, say, $250,000 for 10 miles or whatever it works out to be. And you have a couple of years to complete that project. So it's all, part of it's reimbursement. You get an advance on that money for the development. And then once you go through that advance, you have to file for reimbursements. So this can be done with no money out of pocket potential. Does that answer your question?
Yes and no. So realistically, if the deadline is April 15th, we're probably not applying this year.
What you could try, the only thing they're going to do is say no.
The clubs will be building the trail. And so I think what you're meeting on Thursday, right? And so, yep. So if they are supportive of it, they'll have to front those upfront costs and then get reimbursed later.
If we want, correct. If we want trail work to start within the next month, even if we do apply for this April 15th grant and we're successful, we're not going to see any money until the fall. So if any trail work happens between now and then, the clubs, they're going to talk about it on Thursday, like Bob mentioned, but the clubs sounded like they'd be willing and able to front the initial costs. So
Didn't anticipate that yesterday. Because if they can anticipate do the upfront cost, then they can apply for this grant, state grant, or whatever you call it. And then they know it won't come until next. But their trail system.
So then applying for that grant, does that make it, how do we get, I guess, I think it's the same question, but how do we get from the county designating a trail, regardless of where it is, but we'll use Lorraine as the example. The county designates, in May, the county designates the Lorraine Trail. Then how do we go about getting the DNR's approval, I'll say, to have a state-funded trail? Or is it just through that grant?
that grant. So the way that grant works, it goes in front of a motorized committee at the DNR level. They're not DNR staff, but it's a committee of motorized folks throughout the state. And they analyze all of these requests statewide on new trails, all the projects, bridges, bridge rehabs, and they rank them. And they sit around a big table and they go, well, we're going to give Polk County half of what they're asking for, 100%.
Okay, but my understanding is that you get X amount of dollars per mile of state-approved four-wheeler trail, just like snowmobile trail. How do we get to that point? Or is it simply through that grant process?
It is through that's the process.
Okay.
So that's my fault. We're talking about two different processes in the same deal. We get a development grant to build the trail, and then we get new miles associated with that trail, where we get the maintenance grant in subsequent years.
You finally got it. I caught it.
Ah, sorry.
So D and E, we're fine. We're gonna send them back to the ATV ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
And are we okay with sending F to both? Yeah, for the
Yeah.
rules and regulations. And maybe there again, maybe I'm asking too much, but somebody will tell me if I am. Some rules and regulations aren't that long. I mean, it seems like, could there be some sort of a draft back at whenever their next meetings are? I mean, realistically, that'd be 4 weeks from now. Or 2 meetings for us, not the next meeting. Meeting after that.
Because I would like to include maybe because they understand and can nitpick that apart, saying what they, just because maybe they want to change something to it just a
Yeah.
little more.
Yeah, no, right, no. And I'm not saying, I guess I'm not asking for a finished version, a month from now, just here's what we thought of this, here's what we thought of that. Go ahead, Bob.
It could be put on the second meeting in May, because by then we would have had both ETAG and UTV council look at it. Wouldn't be in your packet, but could be a discussion item, the second meeting of May.
Yeah, just to see where everybody's at.
Read through them this morning and it's pretty general, but
Oh, yeah, it is. That's what I say. It isn't, it isn't like it's long and lengthy or
I
anything.
disagree with anything. I just would like to run
Yeah,
the user.
yeah, no, and that was my goal was, so second meeting in May, Bob.
The key piece is of obviously the seasonality. That's the big piece to those rules and regulations, seasonality.
Keeping them consistent throughout the county, so we don't have different rules for Sterling than we do Lorraine. And allowing staff to go out and monitor the trails and make changes that, is needed, close gates and do that kind of thing, so.
Yeah, need for rules.
The question, you guys brought up the question about gates. Are we putting gates on every entry to the road? Every township road?
Cross that bridge when we get there.
Sure. All right.
All right, we got G in on that discussion too, did we not, Ben?
Nope, a little bit. G here, I just wanted to notify the committee that there's 2 state motorized grants that are going to be applied for this year. There's a resurface and enhancement grant, the Cattail State Trail, or the Sawmill Trail, the County Trail, Clear Lake to Clayton. And that's going to be about $170,000, give or take. That's, we have a couple of years and resurface as we go. So fixing problem spots. And then the other state motorized grant is the campground installation at the Sterling Loop, the existing Sterling Loop. We're going to ask for money to build a campground up there. That's slated in the CIP. There's money allocated for that already, but if we can get some state grant dollars to do that, a little bit of cost savings, that'd be good.
So that was the Sawmill Trail resurface, you said?
The Sawmill
So is that, what'd you say, roughly 175,000? That matching grant there again, or that's total?
100%. There's no action required on either of those. Notifying. And
So when do we apply, when do you apply for them?
I'll be sending the stuff in this week. And so those are due April 15th.
H.
H. So consideration of resolution 1921. This is another grant. This is a federal grant run by the state. It's the Recreational Trails Program grant. We're gonna shoot for a 30% match on our repair of the D.D. Kennedy Bridge. So we have $30,000 allocated to that. This grant potentially could represent a 30% cost savings for that project. So as part of the grant application process, they require a resolution for the counties in support of cost sharing their portion if successful.
So the 30,000, is that putting a whole new, brand new bridge in, or just fixing, or?
That's fixing. That's doing some abutment repairs. The abutments on the bridge are slanting in and they're pushing the bridge one way. So we're expecting a bridge.
Tracy didn't have any problem.
She had a lot of problems.
So, and we, preliminary, when we were putting this project together, we had estimates from $5,000 to $30,000 for repair, replace, remove. So we chose county board chose the repair option. That's $30,000 allocated to the CIP for this year. So we're trying to, find some cost saving opportunity by applying for this.
Motion to recommend resolution 1921.
I make a motion. Recommend resolution 1921.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Very much.
Well, that's work to number 11. In the work plan, we have a presentation on non-metallic mining, which seems appropriate because, within the zoning section of the next meeting's agenda, which again is April 21st, we'll be seeing the CUP from the rezones, Walton's rezones that you approved earlier. So Dean Christensen, non-metallic mining specialist, will be presenting 15 minutes max. It seems that it's going to align pretty well with some of the topic items within zoning. We have 4 public hearings scheduled for the 21st. 2 rezones, CUPs, and then the ordinance amendments to the shoreland, possibly the shoreland and amendments regarding roadhouses.
We pushed that out.
Are we all going to package them together? I think that's what Jason said, didn't he?
Yeah, because they're not even advertised yet.
The worst case scenario, we'll have 2 public hearings. That, again, Dean's presentation, and then also Eric has a quick presentation on 2 new cost share projects that he's working on with local producers. It wouldn't be long as well, 15 minutes. Decided to share that with you. Your storage facilities in particular. So those are things that we will have on next meeting's agenda. As far as ours current agenda, You know, the update on Apple River Project, 8C, we could look at, you know, having that update again in May and perhaps in July. The town of St. Croix Falls resolution,
That would be the first May meeting, right?
sir.
I don't know, what do we think about with Malia going on the 30th? Next meeting, do we just want to see an overview again of what we're sending her with? Just take a look at it and see if there's anything else.
We'll also shoot for 10-7, excuse me, 10F rather. See if we can take this Burnett County template, get some feedback from both PTAG and the ATV UTV Council for your consideration in the second meeting in May.
Would just, I mean, it's out of ways, but it's on today's agenda, so. And I think you had said maybe the second May meeting, but is there a chance like the Lorraine one? Because I don't know when Public Safety and Highway meets in May. But is there any chance that could be back by the first May meeting? Just the Lorraine Trail itself.
Last Tuesday,
It would matter. It would depend upon how the calendar.
like yesterday, we were first Tuesday.
Do you have a calendar there, Sharon?
I do.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm there again. I realize I'm trying to push it, but if, you know,
If we meet the day before, you know, we can be aggressive and we'll shoot for both those topic items, the rules and regulations, and then the Summers Lake and Lorraine Trail, excuse me, Lorraine and Sterling Trail for the first meeting. It may, if not, we'll put them on the second.
yeah, well, the Lorraine Trail anyway, just because I look at that and think that's for the most part built. You know,
For the most part, what?
it's most part, it's built, the Lorraine Trail. They're gonna
Oh.
use a lot of snowmobile trail
Yeah.
and access across a couple private property. So, I mean, if, I guess, put it on, if there's something, fine, if there's not,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
30 seconds later, we'll be.
Somebody does snowmobile maintenance there, I don't know.
They're getting easements now, I think. Won't know until tomorrow night, they're getting easements for that trail.
Yeah,
I'm thinking that is a new, I saw this map this morning, that's not a long distance.
no. So I mean, I know, yeah. I know kind of where they're starting, where they're ending, and yeah, it isn't. So I don't think it's a big deal. So did you say, 2 public hearings and a CUP next meeting, Bob?
Mhm.
Okay,
You know, and I want to get some clarifications. In my notes, I had 4, but there'll be public hearings, at least 2. One could be contentious.
the 2 public hearings for sure, and maybe a CUP,
For the CUP.
definitely the CUP. Okay, so 1 or 2 public hearings with a CUP. So we got those possible 3 things, 2 presentations. Just an overview from Malia on Apple River Solar. Um, Do we want to, next meeting, look at sending to PTAG the public comment from today for a season on the Gandy for horses, just for their feedback? Just send it to them and say, give us your feedback.
I don't care. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Give PTAG something.
Speaking of P-TAG, would probably, so yeah. I can give you an update on there or Ben on the consultants' proposals as well.
Oh, yeah.
Can't guarantee a 10:42 adjournment next time, but it's filling up. It's filling up.
All right, we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to
You
adjourn.
want to second that, Mr. O'Connell? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
What happened to you, Bob?
No.
Well, you don't know yet?
I'm gonna go see about
Yeah, you can hardly.
it. I can really want. My knee just swelled up this morning, the last night. Yeah, I just made it. Wait a minute, Frederick.
It's okay.
I just come to climb poles and I'll get the axle.
It's weird, after, I didn't pay attention.
You
We were pushing these.
natural resource.
Was this, okay, then we need
Really.
back here.
Did you say that?
Monday's
Clerk
fine.
has
Yeah.
these two.
Yeah, we got that three poles.
Okay. I'll jump in there.
Carry. Probably I know why they would jump on that right away.
So people figure out, listen,
That'll be coming.
we're pushing these two projects.
Back.
Monday, the fall, right?
That's not-
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah.
The one-
We did. We talked.
It was actually-
12:30 or something.
Opposite, we were gonna refer to you.
Not a, buy a hot dog or.
I'll make sure Jim gets that map updated. Yeah, and I'll find out why that map wasn't updated in 2019. Because I don't.
I do know, okay, I remember the story
Yeah,
when.
two meetings.
Yeah, yeah,
And to all the other towns.
Yeah.
The same.
and I could.
Public safety meeting?
And then,
I didn't hear that. Did you hear that?
Don't worry about that.
But I
There
still,
was a discussion on.
and then,
you know, there's a lot.
oh,
of-
no, because it wasn't, it didn't come to the floor.
Yeah, it'll sure the big
It
one,
was,
but some of these,
uh,
you know, like.
I didn't hear that.
oh, I have to get my
yeah,
permit.
Google was sharing it to it.
It's so confusing.
This is
The one
the
with
public share.
Who owns the,
So Sharon.
The American
Doug.
Council of Associated
Um,
I mean.
Classes to be printed.
No, I'm telling